Hey there, welcome to Comic Book Cheese. If you're new to the channel, I want you to consider subscribing. It'll really help the channel out a lot. Plus, we have like a bunch of videos and stories that we have to get through. So if you want to follow us along on this journey, make sure you turn the notifications on. And I will see y'all in the video. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hey, what is up, y'all? Now, I've been thinking recently. I've been doing this for like 4 months, this YouTube stuff, and I haven't done a single Spider-Man story yet. Like, literally, he's the most popular hero out, and I have yet to touch any of his stories. Like, he's been in some of the stories that I've told, like Civil War, stuff like that, but I have yet to do a single Spider-Man story. And in this one, we are coming out firing. We're not gonna do the origin. We're not gonna, well, everybody should know like the origin of Peter Parker and all that different stuff. We're not gonna tell any like, other like, normal kind of stories. No, we are going straight into Dying Wish, the death of Peter Parker. Okay, so everybody like knows like Superior Spider-Man. If you know what Superior Spider-Man is, don't spoil it. Okay, we're actually gonna like find out what's going on like during this story here. Just leave it up out of the at the comments and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? All right, so this story right is amazing. So we first start off right. We're at the Raft maximum security prison, right? Everyone's just like freaking out. They're like, oh snap, the alert's going off. What's up with the alarms? Stuff like that. Everyone's trying to see. They're like, oh, Morbius, he's still in there. All the villains are still there, and they make their way to Dr. Octavius, right? Dr. Otto Octavius, he's he's basically he's on his last leg. He's dying pretty much, right? He's hooked up to this machine that has basically like keep him breathing, stuff like that. And they're like all these like guards, they basically just show up and they have their guns pointed at him, just signifying the kind of threat that he is pretty much, right? Like he don't like have any like like powers or nothing. It's mostly just because how smart he is, right? Like he actually like took over the city using his mind. Like he's done some crazy stuff. Like that is just how like smart this guy is. Dr. Otto Octavius, he's a genius pretty much, right? So they just like when they start asking like what's going on, right? They're like asking what's going on, stuff like that. And basically they say that like he hasn't been doing anything for like however long, and like he literally just started just trying to speak, right? So he's trying to speak, and they're just like asking him like, oh, what is he saying? And basically like he leans in and he's like, Peter Parker, let me talk to Peter Parker. He's basically like asking for Peter Parker by name. Like no one knows Spider-Man's identity, and he's literally asking for him by name. It's gonna be like something that like goes on. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, what's going on? Like, how does he know your name? Like stuff like that. So this is where we go to Spider-Man, right? He's like swinging around the city. He's talking about how good his life is now, because he's working at Horizon Labs, right, with Max Modell. He has good amount of money. He's not broke anymore. He has good like apartment and stuff like that. He's living a good life, right? And then he ends up like hearing somebody in distress. He hears somebody in distress, and basically he comes down there, and there's basically this villain, right? And he's talking all like weird and stuff. And Spider-Man, he just goes over, stops him real quick, just like knocks this guy out. And this is where like like we see there's something up with Spider-Man, right? Like he's being weird, right? Because like the officer, when she says like like something like oh, I mean, I don't blame you. And Spider-Man's like, oh, blame me for what? And she's like, oh, well, I mean, punched him like like he's a villain, like you hit him like super hard, stuff like that. And that's something that Spider-Man don't do. He don't just like go in and just like just like use all his strength, so he's acting very odd right now, So from there, he ends up like going home, right? And he gets dressed because he has like an entire day full of stuff that he has to do. He has to go meet with Max Modell. He has to go meet with MJ, his Aunt May, all the different kind of stuff, right? So he goes to Max Modell for his like evaluation at Horizon Lab, and basically it's just him talking about like Max Modell just like asking him, like if he's gonna have an invention for the quarter, right? That's basically all he's asking. And Spider-Man, he's just like, okay, I mean, yeah, I'll have something for you. And he ends up just like leaving, right? So he goes to like meet with MJ at her club, right? She owns this club, and he goes to meet with her there, right? So when he gets there, all right, this is another instant of him, there's being something up with him, right? Him acting odd, right? So he's there with MJ, and he's like he's like, I mean, yeah, like we've been like dancing around us, like this relationship for a long time, like we should be together, stuff like that. And basically like when he's doing that, MJ, she's thinking about it. I mean, she's like, okay, I mean, you want to talk about this right now? And like eventually she's like, okay, yeah, we gotta go talk to Aunt May, stuff like that. So they end up leaving, right? And before they leave, he just like stops, he looks at these two girls, and he's like, oh hey, they, they basically caught his eye, right? And he's he gives them a little wink, stuff like that. It's not something that he normally does, right? He has a thing for MJ. That's basically like what his mind is normally on, right? He's not just like throwing winks at everybody, stuff like that, right? It's just him being weird, So they go to Aunt May. at the hospital, right? And basically as soon as they get there, right, they're just sitting there, And they're just like, like looking at Aunt May, like listen to her talk about, because she's like, trying to walk again, stuff like that. Her leg has to get better. And eventually, Peter Parker, his Avenger card go off, right? He's part of the Avengers, and they, they're basically like, trying to tell him that, something's up. They need to, talk to him, stuff like that. So he eventually leaves, right? He leaves, and he goes to meet with the Avengers, right? So when he gets to the Avengers, okay, he's like talking to him, and he's like, okay, what's the deal here? Like, why am I at RAF, maximum security prison, stuff like that. And basically what Captain America tells him is one of his enemies is dying, right? One of his enemies is dying, and basically they're asking for him like by name. Like they're literally asking for Peter Parker. They're not asking for Spider-Man, they're asking for Peter Parker, right? So there's something like going on here. There's something like the atmosphere of what's going on here is like it's really weird, okay? Like we'll get like some explanation, but for right now it's just like super weird. Like there's something that we don't know, pretty much, right? So they go in, right? And they're just telling them, like, yeah, they asked for you to fight Peter Parker, like Doc Ock, right? He just wants to talk to Peter Parker, right? So he goes in there, right? And he tells everyone to stay out. He wants to go in there by himself and, talk to this guy, right? No cameras, no nothing. He doesn't want none of this stuff on the record, right? So when he gets in there, right? He gets in there. And like he goes up at Otto Octavius, right? And Otto Octavius, he's just like, I'm Peter Parker, right? And he just says he's Peter Parker, and Peter is just like, oh, I mean, no, you're Dr. Otto Octavius now. And basically, they switched bodies. Like literally, Peter Parker is in the body of Dr. Otto Octavius, and he's dying. Like literally, Peter Parker's about to die. The person in Peter's body, that's Dr. Otto Octavius, and literally he's telling him, he's like, oh, I have all your memories, all your like all that stuff. Like I'm literally you now, bro. Like you're not you're not Peter Parker no more. I'm Spider-Man now, no? And eventually, Dr. Otto Octavius, he starts crashing, right? As soon as that happens, Peter leaves and he calls for the doctors. The doctors come up in there and they start trying to like, stabilize him, right? And Peter Parker literally just basically almost died, pretty much, right? So Peter leaves. Well, Dr. Otto Octavius leaves. Well, I'm gonna call Otto Octavius Peter, and I'm gonna call Peter Otto Octavius. Wait. I'm gonna call the body of Otto Octavius Doc Ock. And I'm gonna call the body of Peter, even though they're switched. All right, no, that's because holy crap, I just almost confused myself. All right, so Doc Ock, right? He gets they like stabilize him, right? And he's like questioning. He's like, okay, well, like what? How did he do this? Like how did he take my body, right? Like he's like trying to figure this stuff out, right? Because he's gonna try to like go through his memories and stuff because he has all the memories. And he's like, look, before that, he's like, he's like fearing like, okay, like what could this dude be like doing with my body, right? Like he could be like, he could be killing people. He could be like, out there robbing people. What is he gonna do to my friends and family, right? He has my Avengers card. He could just go up in there and just like, kill any of the heroes at any moment that he wants, stuff like that, right? So this is where he starts looking through the memories, right? He's looking through the memories, and literally the first thing he sees is Doc Ock's abusive father, right? He sees his abusive father. He sees like, like the very first time that Doc Ock got the tentacles, like when they like melted to his body. Like he's literally seeing all this stuff, the losses that he's taking to Spider-Man, like all this different stuff. Like he sees that, like he knows how Doc Ock feels, like, like during his life, right? And eventually he's just like, he sees like the time when Doc Ock and Aunt May was like, getting down, they was getting frisky, and he just started screaming. He's like, oh my god, that didn't happen. I'm denying it, stuff like that, basically. So then eventually he sees where Dr. Octopus like actually found out that he was dying, right? Like when he first got the news that he was like, about to kick the bucket, right? So like the lady's just telling him that he was like, his brain was like degenerating, and like eventually like, he came to the decision to like try to, get out of his body, right? So eventually we find out that Spider-Man, right, like during these like different like battles that him and Dr. Octopus have had, right, like Dr. Octopus has had this helmet, and every time that Spider-Man used that helmet, every time he took it away from him, every time he went and detained it, every time he's made his own like different machinery out of that helmet to use for his own like needs and stuff like that, Dr. Octopus had access to his mind. Literally he could just go in and just like take his mind whenever he wants. So eventually what Dr. Octopus did is he took this Octobot, right, he had this small Octobot, and he had like sent it out. He sent it out of the raft, and he had to go all the way to Manhattan. And one time when Spider-Man was out fighting Hobgoblin, the Octobot jumped on him, zapped him, and it put the mind of it changed like the mind, the brain signature of Peter Parker, right? So like Peter Parker, he didn't necessarily like switch consciousness. It switched their brain patterns, right? To be it switched his brain pattern to be Dr. Octopus's, right? And it switched Dr. Octopus's to be Peter Parker's. So it sort of like switched like the way that they think, right? Basically like that. Like it was weird. It's weird how it worked out, but that's how it worked out, right? So eventually, like, he's like, I mean, yeah, if he could do it, I could do it too. I'm smarter than that guy, you know, stuff like that. And basically, he links with that Octobot, right? He links with that Octobot, and he's like going around, right? He's like going around, and he's like thinking like if he wanted to go to the Avengers or not, right? But he didn't go to the Avengers because if he were to like go to them and be like, hey, I'm Dr. Otto Octavious, my real name's Peter Parker, I'm Spider-Man, y'all gotta help me. No one's gonna believe that, like. No one's gonna believe that, especially coming from like this little, like this tiny Octobot. Like no one's gonna believe that, right? So eventually, like, he goes to villains, right? So he goes to these villains, like he goes to like this like keypad, and he like puts in his transmission for all these villains to see, right? For them to come and break him out of jail, right? So they go over there, right? Peter, he's just sitting there waiting, or Dr. Octopus, he's just sitting there waiting in his bed, and then eventually they bust in, right? And eventually they go to Dr. Octopus, break him out of his thing, and they just start taking all these different people out. But before they leave, they think about, like, you know, releasing some other villains, right? But Spider-Man, he's still a good guy. Dr. Octopus, he's still a good guy. You know, he doesn't want to release any of these villains. You know, he thinks about releasing the Lizard because, you know, he's not necessarily a bad guy because it's Kurt Connors in the body at this point. You know, he has like the mind of Kurt Connors, just the body of the Lizard, so he's not like super unpredictable and stuff like that. But yeah, he thinks about like releasing any of them, but he's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. And they end up just like, you know, trying to leave, right? So they end up escaping, right? And like the last thing that he says is they have to go and look for Spider-Man. He's gonna go and try to get his body back before his body dies, but he's on a countdown. He is literally on a ticking. He's on a the clock is ticking. Like literally, he's gonna die in a few hours if he doesn't go get his body back and, you know, switch it back for with Peter Parker, right? So we're gonna stop this video here. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'm gonna be getting a lot more Spider-Man stuff going out. Just cause, like, you know, it's like, I mean, it's Spider-Man. Like, who don't like Spider-Man stories, right? But yeah, I will see y'all in the next one.